Well, it is the true crime case that launched a hit podcast and a Disney Plus TV series.
But for the journalist who exposed the shocking truth, it's not a story she can move on from easily. Well, journalist, host and executive producer Charlie Webster joins us live from LA. Good morning to you, Charlie. Thanks so much for being with us. Look, this is an incredible story. It really has to be seen and heard to be believed. Walk us through the extent of that deception and when you were first actually tipped off.
You're exactly right, David, and good morning to everyone from LA. Oh gosh, how do I start this? So Amanda, you just heard about, she started a blog post in 2012, and if you remember, it's like the heyday of blogging. It was before Instagram, we were started on Instagram, before TikTok, and so she really garnered this like mass online community, but also was very close to her local communities, you can see from the pictures on your screen. And an anonymous tip came in, and it was somebody who was from Amanda's past that said she thought that it was all a lie, and this story then just grew and it unravelled, and I ended up getting involved before we even really knew that she was definitely lying. And then the police took on the case, and then the police found it very hard, because what's so fascinating about these kind of, I know we call it true crime, but it's much more of like a behavioural, psychological, narcissistic social examination really that ends up as a crime of like what would cause somebody to do this and to this extent. And I think the one thing I'd emphasise is, you know, I know you have Belle Gibson, which is talked to me quite a bit on Australia, but what Amanda did was she faked cancer. So she made it look like she had cancer. She was in hospitals. She was in the church giving testimony. She had a shaved head. She had bruises under her eyes. She had IV drips in. You can see on your screen. So the extent was so nuanced and manipulative.
But how did she keep that lie going so long? Like, so she pretended that she was in hospital? I mean, you just can't put an IV drip in yourself.
It's a really good question. She didn't pretend to be in hospital, and they weren't like some AI fake images, fake news. She actually was in hospital, and she did go to hospital appointments, and then she took multiple different pictures and then populated that through her blog. And it's actually easier than you think, especially in the States, because you can go to one hospital and say go in like, you know, the accident and emergency, the emergency room, say you fainted or something, have your picture taken and be in there for fainting, and then go to the next hospital, And I have spoken to Amanda, and she said that, I mean, granted, this is somebody that's lied about having cancer, but she says that she was in hospital for certain things, but wasn't actually in there for cancer. And just to answer your question, like, this is a woman who every day showcased that she had cancer, even though she didn't. And so it wasn't like so long that the lie kept going. It was so long that she showcased it, and there was no reason anybody would have really doubted it. You know, she stood on stage with money at her feet, and she said that she was surviving. This was somebody who represented hope. She went to cancer groups and sat among these people representing somebody that was, you know, battling cancer, for want of a better word. So she lived and breathed it to the extent that it feels like she believed it.
And I suppose, and you made that that similarity there, that comparison to Belle Gibson here in Australia, but eventually it was those financial crimes that led to her undoing. Of course, not a crime as such to fake cancer, but it was the financial element here.
Yeah, it was, because lying isn't against the law, and that was the bizarre complication of this whole story, because even when the detectives started to look into Amanda, they couldn't even access her medical records, and then they couldn't even do anything about it. So in the end, Amanda's downfall was the fact that she actually took money over the wires, which then could be accounted as wire fraud, which then got the IRS, the tax, the revenue involved, and then they could prosecute her for one count of wire fraud. But I was sat in the courtroom when this happened, and the judge very much understood I think the real impact here, and the real impact was far beyond money. It wasn't really about money, I think, for the victims or even for Amanda. For Amanda, very much attention, validation. For the victims, it was deep, deep betrayal of somebody they loved and cared about.
Yeah, Charlie, it is a fascinating case. You're the EP of this award-winning podcast called Scamander. So if this has whet the appetite for anybody who wants to look into it, that's where you can go. And there's also a series of the same name on Disney+. Charlie, thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you.